So, Sarah, what a pleasure to have you today. We thank you on behalf of SETSI. We thank you for being a part of our community of practice channel here on YouTube. We really thank you for your leadership today.
It's my pleasure to be here. So thank you for inviting me as a guest.
Awesome. So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Thank you for the invitation to do so. And thank you for that blessing. That was beautiful. So my name is Sarah Boxx, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called Sarah Boxx Coaching and Consulting and Sandbox Productions. And my whole focus, our team's whole focus, is on working with and supporting nonprofit organizations. So I came to that work from the back end of being a volunteer, being a board member, being a volunteer trainer. And then I was asked to lead a nonprofit organization, which is a whole different viewpoint, right, from the folks who come and do the work. Huge shift. And you're having to learn politics and finances and all of these other things. And I did that in two different organizations. And then I was asked by a consulting firm to come with them to help them help other nonprofits. So that was the first part of the volunteering and board membership, kind of carried on for about 15 years. It had overlap in the consulting part. And I did that for 18 years. And then I went out on my own, because one thing I realized is I wanted to pick my clients, if you will, to work more personally with them and in a more, one-on-one, but I mean, very corporate or business focused, but very one-on-one, tailored to where they are in the moment versus a one-size-fits-all. So our team does that. We think about it in three kind of buckets. We look at, where are you? Like, a lot of times people will say, I'm having this problem and I need you to do this. But when in fact, what's really happening is they're seeing the effects of a problem, but it may not be what they think it is. So rather than trying to fix something that's not broken, we do a little bit of diagnostic work first. So is it this or is it that? Because we don't want to waste their resources on doing something that they don't need to do. So, but we also know that when it comes to implementing or planning, it's when you're the one in the driver's seat and maybe you're the only leader of your organization and you don't have anybody to bounce things off of, it's helpful to have someone ask you the questions that help you think more clearly, right? So, oh, I see. Or someone who's been there before and can say, that really sucks. I get it. But let's do this. Let's think about it maybe this way. So anyway, but then as things have changed and nonprofits have grown, I mean, they're a huge, especially here in the States, they are a huge piece of the overall economy. I mean, they do a lot of boots on the ground work. And oftentimes people don't understand what it takes to run a nonprofit. And they think that it means you should have no profits, but that just means you keep going out of business, right? So every year is a scramble. So our personal team mission is to help nonprofits get off that hamster wheel of constantly asking for money, but instead have a large base, if they want it large, depending on what they need, of dependable, committed donors and supporters in their community or beyond, depending on their missions. And we know that you can do that by telling stories that contain both the heart stories of what you do to make a difference, but also what's the impact? What's the long-term impact? How have you tangibly improved situations? So that's our whole sandbox production phase, where we really focus on video production that helps nonprofits tell their unique story. So it's not like everybody else's story. So that's our collective. And we are a small team. There's only 7 of us. We're kind of distributed. We've got some folks on one side of the country here in the US, on the other side. And then one of our key players lives in the Philippines. So we're kind of spread around.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So, can you articulate your personal mission and vision for us?
My personal one is always leave things better than you found them. So there was a man here. This goes back to the early 1900s, but he was a fantastic naturalist and an advocate for nature. John Muir is his name. But his whole thing was leave no trace. You don't leave a trace of where you've been. You leave it as good or better when you walk out. You pick up your crap. You don't look bad for the people behind you. So all my life has kind of been like, leave it better, or help people who think like maybe they're so close to a goal, they just need a little encouragement. Help them. That's my personal mission. That's kind of how I show up in life. And have been that way since kindergarten that I can remember.
Wow, that's amazing to have that from day one. It's like it's ingrained in you. That's amazing.
I'm not sure I was aware of it until I got older and saw the patterns,
That's it. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the seed is just planted, but when it grows, you start to acknowledge it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's amazing. So, what inspires you? Oh, sorry, I asked that already. What challenges or barriers have you faced in your work, and how are you able to overcome them?
Well, sometimes the challenges have been the things that have helped us grow the most, so the challenge of distance and different time zones when you're trying to help people and work with them, right? And that's just a very real thing. We don't know where our clients are going to be, and we don't know where we're going to be. So the ability to be flexible and just have kind of, here's our plan A, here's our plan B. Let's try not to need plan B, but it's there, So we do that on our end as like your partners in working with you. We also think really far ahead. So instead of saying, okay, let's just figure this out together, we work with you. Say you are our client, we'd find out what you want, but we work with you to get clear on what your vision is. So we don't just do the same thing for you we would do for someone else, but then we plan that out and make sure it still works for you. Because I know that when I was an executive director, the last thing I wanted was to have a plan for myself and my staff and have some consultant say, oh, that doesn't work for us. It's like, hello, you're here to help us. So that has helped us have really good relationships with the folks we work with. And it's also given us grace with each other. And as we've needed to add people, we will add them. We don't want that to make it a barrier for doing great work with folks.
Exactly. Very good. And what are some of the key priorities that you're currently working on now?
Well, right now we're working with a couple of different organizations who one is international, one's statewide, another one is also international, but they have a focus, 2-country focus. And we're really working with them early on to define what is the story of their impact and how they're focused on sustainability. So they're not constantly writing grants, reporting on grants. We're helping them. So those are at the larger organization size. But then at the smaller organization, we're working with an executive who is like, she's grown her nonprofit. It's very scrappy. I mean, she's got a great team. Everybody's got specific roles, but they're at that tipping point, where you get a certain number of folks and all of a sudden, this is no longer the small family. This is the big cousins are all here thing. And so we're working with her to help her think like, okay, what is the next iteration of that organization? So then her team can help build that and they can continue serving their community, because the community needs have changed tremendously since they started there. So those for me are my focuses, a few of them. But we really are finding the impact of people who can tell their stories through like long form or short form video, because you can clip that up and tell it in a whole bunch of places. You can talk to donors. You can tell, if you were a client, we could say, hey, here's the great story of this gal, right? And aren't you moved by that? If you're moved by that, I think you're a fit for our organization. And one of the benefits of that is it helps you filter out people who aren't your quote unquote people to support your organization. So you're not just constantly talking to people who don't necessarily care, but you're talking to people who do care, if that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. Like it's once you show and it pulls on their heartstrings, it's something that, you'll be like, you're a great fit, because
Yeah,
it's, this work is really about that, yeah, that starting with the heart, then, leading with the mind, because you have to have passion and purpose, for people too, right? People, passion, and purpose,
absolutely.
the three
If
P's.
you have no passion for people, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you're not working on social impact or community impact, right? Maybe you have a
That's right.
different passion. It's not bad, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. Perfect. Exactly. Awesome. So, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
Well, success for me personally is that my team, my colleagues, all have happy lives at home, that the work doesn't consume them and then they become so obsessed by the work that there's detriment to their families because they're always gone or always feeling like I've got to grind out more and more and more. But on a longer term, it's to know that there's a legacy of people who have different ways of thinking about their work, tools about thinking about their work. They learn from us so that they don't need us. It's like, great, we don't need to be there every year with you. Once you get stronger, have at it. If you need to come back and, touch base with us, that's great. But long term for me is having a legacy of people who do that with and for one another, whether it's our company or others.
Exactly. Very good. And so, how do you feel about the future of social impact? Now, normally I say Canada, but we're on the same turtle island. So, how do you
I was
feel
gonna
about
say,
social impact in in North America?
I really ponder that question. I know folks want to feel like sometimes doom and gloom, but I don't. I always think about, okay, if it's looking dark here, like it's not working right here, what are the opportunities we're not seeing? Because there's someone who's seeing an opportunity, but we're used to looking at things one way. And so all we see is a roadblock. So what does this make possible? What does this roadblock make possible? And when COVID first happened, and I was working with a ton of nonprofits in Southern California, right? There was no time for these guys to sit and go, well, let's think about it. Let's make a plan. No, the people they were serving needed their help still. So it was like pivot. So what it made possible is these guys found out they had partners and they could leverage their work differently than they had been doing before. It was a terrible situation, and yet some really good stuff came out of it. So it's that open, like, oh, or who else? If we're looking at social impact, who's doing something in a different sector that if we could apply that knowledge here, we could even do better. So I think that whole curiosity and being open to how people do things differently than we do can really help in social impact. And people do want to help.
Exactly, especially when you see social impact in different parts of the globe and how we can implement some of that. We're in North America, maybe in South America, they do something that we can implement here. Or, we all collaboration together because
Yeah,
collaboration really is the key to social change. That's how we're going to really combat this thing.
I
Hmm.
totally agree. And, I think about it. Sometimes they aren't even acts that you do, but I noticed, and I don't, depending, the organizations I worked with work a lot with kids and families and health. And when I was doing some research, I noticed a lot of the immigrant families from other countries actually had some better health outcomes, even though that they didn't have better situations, but they had some social indicators of health that were better, which were tighter family connections, extended family connections, right? Instead of being all independent and spread out. And I thought, well, how powerful is that? What could we take from that? Right.
That's right. That's right.
So, but you have to be willing to go, that is so cool. And you can't just say, okay, well, that's them, this is us. It's like, yeah, that's them. And guess what? They know who all their cousins are, you know?
That's it. There's a certain tradition that they hold very sacred, so it's something that works for them. Exactly. Oh, this is amazing. Sarah, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to actions for people watching today?
Well, my favorite is to just stay curious about other people. There's that little voice in us that wants to say, yes, but, or what about this? And it's just like, well, what else do you have? What else could you share with me on that? Right. Or tell me maybe a different way to think about something. So staying curious is super helpful, even when you're uncomfortable inside. You're like going, ugh, I just want to argue with this person. Don't. Keep your mouth shut and just stay curious at least a little longer. Right. So pause on arguing, open up to curiosity, keep your heart open. Um, And I think that would be my piece of quote unquote advice. And then for anybody who, wants to know like what might it look like to be able to tell your story differently, let us know. We have a behind the scenes website. It's not public facing, but I'm happy to share the link with you so people can go through and say, oh, these are some types of things that can be done. And maybe that will help other organizations think we could do this for ourselves.
Yes,
One of
please
the
go
things
ahead before I stop. Just go ahead and put the link and then it will flash. Can put the
okay,
link
well,
in. Mhm.
that's now I've got to, okay,
Oh,
keep
okay.
talking.
Don't worry. I thought you had it
Oh,
ready. Don't worry.
no, I wished I did.
We can always add it later. You can email Victor and then we'll put it in when we actually put it on YouTube. Hmm.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I didn't put you on the spot like that.
Oh, that's okay. I should have had it ready for you, but I'm thinking,
No,
yeah,
not a
because I
problem.
just, anyway, but no, I'll send that to you because we'd love for
Awesome.
folks to be able to get it. Creativity is good. And then you and your teams could crowdsource what might work for us.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Again, it's all about that collaboration coming together. Because I always say, we're pieces of puzzle, but we're just doing the work for the next generation and the next generation. Like we're going to be passing the baton. And what the work that we're doing is, really it's laying a foundation, but we know there's still much more to go. But we're in the right direction.
There's
Mhm.
been hundreds of thousands of years before us. There will be
That's
beyond us. We are
that's
not
right.
all and all. Right. The
That's it.
foundation. Yeah. I love how you
That's it.
think about that.
Awesome. So, Sarah, we appreciate so much your wisdom and we wish you lots of health and prosperity in your journey. And we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Sarah, we will definitely be in touch. And, it's not a goodbye, it's a see you later.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
Bye.